The vastness of space was silent, endless, and merciless. Amid the darkness, a massive Villari vessel drifted, its hull torn apart, engines barely flickering with weak energy. Inside, alarms blared as the crew struggled to keep the ship from completely failing. First Officer Severin stood at the control panel, her blue-scaled fingers tightening into fists. "Damage report," she barked. A technician, struggling to stay calm, responded, "Shields are gone. Power is at 12%. Life support failing. We won't last much longer." Severin's heart pounded. The Villari were a proud race, isolated from most of the galaxy. Their enemies had struck without warning, and now they were stranded in the void. No reinforcements were coming. No allies would answer their call. Still, they had no choice. "Send a distress signal," Severin ordered, though she knew it was hopeless. Villari never asked for help. It was a sign of weakness. But at this moment, they were out of options. The signal was sent. Seconds turned into minutes. Minutes turned into an hour. No response. Then suddenly, a reply. A single ship was approaching. Not Villari. Not their enemies. A human vessel. Severin narrowed her sharp eyes. Humans were reckless, unpredictable, and dangerous. The Villari considered them primitive in some ways, too emotional, too chaotic. And yet, this human had answered their call. The communicator crackled, and a voice came through. "This is Commander Jackson Ward, Earth Federation pilot. I received your distress call. You look like you could use a hand." Severin hesitated. Why would a human risk their life for strangers? "We don't need your assistance," she said coldly, out of instinct. Jackson chuckled on the other end. "Yeah. Looks like your ship's saying otherwise." The Villari crew exchanged uneasy glances. They didn't trust humans. But as Severin looked at the flickering emergency lights, the dying life support systems, she knew they wouldn't survive much longer. Swallowing her pride, she exhaled sharply. "Very well, human. Do as you wish." Jackson's fighter jet swooped in, small but fast, maneuvering through the wreckage with incredible skill. The Villari crew watched in awe and suspicion. Was he really coming to help? Or did he have his own motives? As Jackson docked onto their ship, Severin braced herself. Humans were unpredictable. But right now, they needed a miracle. The air inside the Villari ship was thick with tension as the docking bay doors slid open. Steam hissed from broken pipes. Flickering lights cast eerie shadows, and the smell of burnt circuits filled the air. Through the smoke, Commander Jackson Ward stepped in, his flight suit slightly scuffed, his helmet tucked under one arm. His sharp eyes scanned the chaotic scene before him. Villari officers stood in formation, their expressions cold, their hands hovering near their weapons. They didn't trust him. He could feel it. Jackson smirked. "Well, you guys sure know how to throw a welcome party." No one laughed. First Officer Severin, standing at the front, crossed her arms. Her silver-blue eyes studied him carefully. "You came alone," she noted. Her voice was calm, but there was suspicion underneath. Jackson shrugged. "I was in the area. Thought I'd help." Another Villari officer scoffed. "Humans don't help without a reason." Jackson raised an eyebrow. "Maybe I just don't like watching people die when I can do something about it." Silence. The Villari didn't expect that answer. Severin took a deep breath. "Our ship is failing. Life support is at 12%. Power is almost gone. If we don't fix the reactor soon, we will all be dead within hours." Jackson nodded slowly, running a hand through his short brown hair. "All right. Show me what I'm working with." Reluctantly, Severin led him through the corridors. The deeper they went, the worse the damage became. Sparks flew from broken control panels, pipes leaked coolant, and the ship groaned under its own weight. Jackson whistled. "You guys took a real beating." Severin clenched her jaw. "We were ambushed by scavenger pirates. They stripped our defenses and left us here to die." Jackson frowned. Pirates don't usually leave survivors. That means they're coming back. Scifi stiffened. She hadn't considered that. As they reached the reactor room, Jackson knelt beside a damaged energy core, running his fingers over the cracked surface. "I can stabilize this," he said, "but I'll need parts, tools, and about an hour." Scifi hesitated. Trusting a human with Villari technology was unthinkable, but she had no choice. She nodded. "Do what you must." Jackson grinned. "Now you're talking." As he got to work, alarms suddenly blared through the ship. A voice crackled over the speakers. "Enemy ships detected. The pirates are back." Scifi's eyes widened. Jackson had been right. The Villari were defenseless. The ship was weak. And now, the real fight was about to begin. Red warning lights flashed across the Villari ship's control panels. The alarms were loud, echoing through the halls. The pirates were back. Scifi clenched her fists as the voice of her technician crackled through the communicator. 5 enemy ships approaching fast. They're armed and ready to fire. Jackson still crouched beside the damaged reactor side. "You ever get the feeling that the universe really hates you?" Scifi shot him a glare. "This is not the time for jokes, human." He stood up, brushing off his hands. "It's always the time for jokes. Keeps the fear away." Then his face turned serious. "Can your ship fight back?" Scifi hesitated. The answer was no. Their weapons were disabled, their shields gone, and their engines were barely holding together. "They'll board us," she muttered, realization sinking in. "They'll take everything." Jackson cracked his knuckles. "Not if we stop them first." Scifi narrowed her eyes. "You have a plan." He grinned. "Always." A desperate defense. Jackson and Scifi rushed to the command deck. The Villari crew worked frantically, trying to find a way to hold off the enemy, but their ship was barely operational. "They're hailing us," one of the officers reported. "Put them through," Scifi ordered. The screen flickered, revealing the grinning face of a pirate captain, a scared reptilian alien with black eyes and a twisted smirk. "Villari vessel," he sneered. "I thought we finished you off. Looks like we get to collect more treasure." His dark gaze flicked to Jackson. "And what's this? You got yourself a human pet." Jackson smirked, stepping forward. "Careful. This pet bites." The pirate laughed. "We'll see about that." The transmission cut off. Jackson turned to Scifi. "They'll be docking in less than 5 minutes. We need to set a trap." She crossed her arms. "We don't have weapons." Jackson grinned. "You don't, but I do." Setting the trap, Jackson rushed back to his fighter, still docked in the Villari hangar. He grabbed a small explosive device and quickly modified it, connecting it to the ship's backup power core. Scifi watched, confused. "What are you doing?" He grinned, giving them a surprise. "Once they dock, I'll overload the power grid and fry their systems." The plan was simple. Let the pirates board, then disable their weapons and communications in one big electrical blast. Would it work? Jackson wasn't sure. But humans were known for doing the impossible. As the pirate ships locked onto the Villari vessel, Jackson and Scifi braced for impact. The fight for survival had begun. The Villari vessel shook violently as the pirate ship slashed onto its hull. The sound of metal grinding against metal echoed through the halls. They were coming. Scifi's grip tightened around her sidearm. The Villari weren't warriors. They were explorers, scientists. Fighting was not their strength. Jackson, on the other hand, looked too calm. He was checking his weapons, adjusting his combat vest, and whistling like this was just another day for him. Scifi frowned. "You are too relaxed." Jackson smirked. "Relaxed? No, just ready." He tapped the device he had rigged up earlier. "Once they step in, I'll overload the power grid. Their weapons and comms will shut down for a few minutes. That's when we strike." Scifi nodded reluctantly. Trusting the human wasn't easy, but she had seen how he worked. Reckless, yes, but effective. A hissing sound filled the corridor. The pirates were cutting through the airlock doors. Seconds later, the metal burst open. The ambush. A group of heavily armed pirates stormed in, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. They expected a weak, defenseless crew. What they didn't expect was Jackson Ward. Just as the first pirate stepped forward, Jackson hit the detonator. A massive electrical surge shot through the corridors, frying the pirates' weapons and shutting down their comms. Sparks flew, lights flickered, and for a moment, chaos. Jackson didn't waste a second. He charged forward, fist colliding with the nearest pirate's face, sending the alien crashing into a wall. Another pirate swung at him with a blade, but Jackson ducked, grabbed the alien's arm, and threw him over his shoulder. The Velari crew watched in stunned silence. Scifi snapped out of it first. Attack. Now. The Velari, usually hesitant in combat, followed Jackson's lead. They tackled the disabled pirates, using their superior speed to knock them down before their weapons could reboot. Scifi moved with precision, dodging an enemy strike and slamming the pirate's head against the control panel. Jackson, meanwhile, was fighting three at once. He grabbed a fallen enemy's rifle, used it as a club, and took them down one by one. Within minutes, the first wave of pirates was unconscious on the floor. But the fight wasn't over. A loud explosion rocked the ship. Jackson turned to Scifi, breathing heavily. That came from the hangar. Scifi's eyes darkened. They're trying to take the ship's core. Jackson reloaded his pistol. Then let's stop them. Together, they raced toward the hangar, where the real battle was about to begin. Jackson and Scifi rushed through the smoke-filled corridors, their boots pounding against the metal floor. The ship trembled from the explosion in the hangar, and the air was thick with the scent of burning wires. As they neared the core chamber, Scifi's communicator crackled. "Captain, the pirates. They're trying to detach the power core. If they succeed, we'll lose all power." Jackson gritted his teeth. He had expected the pirates to loot supplies, maybe take hostages, but stealing the core itself, that was suicide. Without it, the Velari ship would be dead in space. Scifi tensed, her sharp gaze focused ahead. If they take it, we won't even have life support. Jackson cocked his pistol. Then we don't let them. The hangar showdown. As they entered the hangar, the scene before them was chaos. Pirates in ragged armor were surrounding the glowing energy core, using heavy machinery to detach it from the ship's framework. Sparks flew as metal screamed under the strain. Their leader, a hulking alien with cybernetic arms, barked orders. His red eyes glowed, reflecting the core's light. "Move faster. Take it before the ship collapses." Jackson smirked. "I hate to break it to you, buddy, but you're stealing the wrong thing." The pirate leader turned, his eyes narrowing. "You again." Jackson raised his pistol. "Me again." The leader snarled. "Kill them." The pirates opened fire. Jackson's reckless plan. Jackson and Scifi dove behind cover as plasma blasts tore through the air. Sparks rained down, metal panels exploding into shrapnel. "We're outnumbered," Scifi growled. Jackson peeked over the edge of a crate. "Yeah, but they're stupid." Scifi glared at him. "And your plan is?" Jackson grinned. "See those fuel tanks?" He pointed to a stack of red-marked barrels near the pirates. Scifi's eyes widened. "You're insane." Jackson shrugged. "You should have figured that out by now." Before she could stop him, he stood up, aimed his pistol, and fired. The shot hit the first barrel, igniting the pressurized fuel inside. Boom! A massive explosion ripped through the hangar. The blast knocked pirates off their feet, sending debris flying. The leader stumbled back, roaring in anger. Scifi took the opportunity. She sprinted forward, blade in hand, and slashed through the power cables attached to the core. The pirate machinery whined and shut down, their plan ruined. The leader roared in rage, charging at Jackson with inhuman speed. Jackson rolled out of the way, barely avoiding a massive cybernetic fist. He spun, kicked off a fallen crate, and landed a punch square on the alien's jaw. The pirate leader staggered, stunned. Sci-Fi rushed in, blade ready. Together, they were about to end this fight. The pirate leader growled, shaking off the impact of Jackson's punch. His cybernetic arms whirred, glowing with a dangerous red energy. "You think a human and a weak Villari can stop me?" he sneered. Jackson rolled his shoulders, a smirk on his face. "Well, we've already wrecked your plan. Might as well finish the job." The pirate leader lunged forward, swinging his metal fist toward Jackson. Jackson dodged just in time, feeling the heat of the charged energy pass inches from his face. He countered with a sharp kick to the pirate's knee, making him stumble. At the same time, Sci-Fi moved like a shadow, her blade slicing through the air. The pirate barely blocked it, his mechanical arm deflecting the attack. He snarled and swung at her, but she twisted away gracefully, landing beside Jackson. "We need to disable his arms," she said, breathing heavily. "That's where his strength is." Jackson grinned. "Then let's clip them." A deadly trap. Jackson noticed a thick power cable snaking across the hangar floor. Sparks flickered from where it had been damaged in the explosion. High voltage. An idea formed in his mind. "Sci-Fi," he whispered. "Get him to step on that cable." She nodded, understanding immediately. Jackson charged at the pirate, firing a few shots. The plasma rounds bounced off the pirate's metal armor, but that wasn't the point. The pirate roared and rushed after him, just as Jackson planned. Sci-Fi moved in fast, attacking from behind, forcing him to step backward, right onto the live wire. The moment his foot touched the cable, electricity surged through his cybernetic limbs. The pirate leader screamed, his arms locking up as his body convulsed. The high voltage fried his systems, and he collapsed, twitching and groaning. Jackson dusted off his hands. "And that's how you take out trash." Victory, but at a cost. The remaining pirates saw their leader fall and panicked. Some tried to flee, but the Villari crew rushed in, weapons ready. "Secure them," Sci-Fi ordered. The crew, now filled with newfound courage, captured the surviving pirates. Jackson, still catching his breath, looked at the energy core. It was still in place, but barely stable. Sci-Fi followed his gaze. "We need to fix it. Fast." Jackson cracked his knuckles. "Then let's get to work." Though they had won the battle, the fight wasn't over yet. If they didn't repair the core soon, the ship would still be doomed. The hangar was a mess. Smoke, broken machinery, and the unconscious bodies of pirates scattered across the floor. The battle was over, but the real fight was just beginning. Jackson wiped sweat from his forehead as he stared at the damaged energy core. The soft hum it once had was fading, flickering like a candle about to go out. If it died completely, so would the ship. Sci-Fi knelt beside it, scanning the damage with quick precision. "The core's stabilizer is failing. We have maybe 10 minutes before it shuts down." Jackson let out a slow whistle. "And I'm guessing you don't have a backup." She shot him a glare. "Do humans always waste time with questions, or is it just you?" Jackson grinned. "Fine, let's fix it. What do we need?" "A dangerous repair." Sci-Fi worked fast, rerouting power from secondary systems to slow down the core's decay. But it wasn't enough. Jackson checked his wrist display, linking it to the ship's diagnostics. "Dan, your fuel lines are leaking, and your converter is fried. We need a new power link." Sci-Fi exhaled sharply. "There is no spare." Jackson thought for a second. Then an idea hit him. "What about my fighter's reactor?" Sci-Fi's eyes widened. "You want to use your ship's power source to restart the core?" Jackson shrugged. "It's small, but it's got enough juice for a jump start." Sci-Fi hesitated. "That means, if this fails, you'll be stuck here with us." Jackson smirked. "Oh no, I'd be stranded on a ship full of tall, scary aliens. How terrifying." She didn't understand his sarcasm, but she understood his choice. With a small nod, she said, Then let's do it. The last attempt. Jackson ran back to his fighter, ripping open the reactor casing. He disconnected the main power cells, ignoring the sparks flying around him. His ship would be useless after this, but the Velari needed it more. Dragging the reactor core across the hangar, he hooked it up to the failing Velari system. Scifi typed commands into the control panel. Ready. Jackson held onto the cables. Hit it. She pressed the switch. The human reactor roared to life, sending power surging through the Velari core. The ship shook violently as energy crackled through the wires. For a moment, nothing happened. Jackson's heart pounded. Had it failed? Then suddenly, the Velari core pulsed with new life. The ship's lights flickered back on, and the engines rumbled beneath them. Scifi's expression, usually serious, softened with relief. It's working. Jackson exhaled. Told you it'd work. Scifi looked at him, a strange expression in her silver blue eyes. For the first time, she saw a human not as reckless, but as remarkable. But before she could say anything, the ship's sensors blared again. Jackson's face fell. Now what? Scifi checked the screen, and her blood ran cold. A warship is coming. The ship's alarms blared once again, the red warning lights flashing across the control panels. The Velari crew, still recovering from the battle, froze in fear. Scifi's silver blue eyes narrowed as she checked the readings. A massive enemy warship was approaching fast, its size dwarfing their already damaged vessel. Jackson groaned. Oh, come on. I just fixed this ship. Scifi ignored him, focusing on the data. It's not just pirates this time. It's their mothership. The reality hit Jackson hard. This wasn't just a scavenger crew looking for easy loot. This was an extermination force. The pirates weren't here to rob them anymore. They were here to erase them. No way to fight back. Weapons? Jackson asked, already knowing the answer. Scifi shook her head. Still offline. Shields are only at 25%, and we have no fighter escorts. Jackson clicked his tongue. Great. No shields, no guns, and now a warship. We can't fight, Scifi admitted. And we're too damaged to escape. Jackson ran a hand through his hair. He had been in bad situations before, but this was suicide. Still, there had to be a way. His mind raced, searching for any advantage. Then, he noticed something on the scanners. The warship wasn't just moving toward them. It was slowing down. Jackson's eyes narrowed. Why aren't they attacking yet? Scifi frowned. They're scanning us. Maybe they think we're already dead. Jackson's smirk returned. Then let's make them think we are. A dangerous gamble. Jackson turned to the Velari crew. Shut down everything. Engines, lights, life support. Make it look like the ship's already wrecked. Scifi hesitated. That's risky. Jackson nodded. Yeah, but if they think we're already dead, they might pass us by. Scifi weighed the options. It was insane, but so was fighting a warship head-on. She turned to her crew. Do as he says. Within seconds, the Velari ship went dark. The hum of the engines faded. The temperature inside dropped as life support powered down. From the outside, the ship looked like nothing more than a floating wreck. Now, all they could do was wait. A terrifying moment. Jackson and Scifi stood on the command deck, watching the warship on the scanners. It was close now, its shadow eclipsing them like a predator. The pirate mothership drifted closer and closer. The Velari crew held their breath. If the pirates saw through their trick, they were dead. Jackson's fingers twitched near his weapon. If this didn't work, he was going to go down fighting. Then, the warship slowed, stopped, and then began to move away. Jackson exhaled, grinning. Guess they bought it. But Scifi wasn't smiling. Her eyes remained fixed on the scanners. No, they're sending a team to check for survivors. The Velari ship remained dark and silent, floating like a lifeless wreck. But Jackson and Syvern weren't fooled. The pirates were sending a team to check for survivors. Syvern's voice was low and tense. "They're coming." Jackson sighed. "Of course they are." On the scanner, a smaller dropship detached from the warship, heading straight for them. This wasn't a random boarding party. It was an elite search team. "If they find us alive," Syvern said, "they will alert their warship. Then we're finished." Jackson nodded. They had to act fast. A new plan. Jackson turned to the Velari crew. "We can't fight an entire warship, but if we can take out this boarding team quietly, we might get a chance to escape." Syvern understood immediately. "We set a trap." Jackson grinned. "Now you're thinking like a human." She ignored his sarcasm and relayed orders to her crew. Everyone moved quickly but silently, taking cover behind wreckage while Jackson and Syvern positioned themselves near the airlock. Minutes later, the enemy dropship latched onto the hull. The sound of metal cutting through metal echoed through the ship. The pirates were forcing their way inside. The Velari held their breath. Jackson tightened his grip on his pistol. Then the airlock burst open, and the pirates stormed in. The silent battle. The enemy team was smaller but well-equipped, elite soldiers in heavy armor, moving cautiously through the darkened halls. Jackson counted 6 of them. Too many for a direct fight, but perfect for an ambush. As the first pirate stepped forward, Syvern struck first, leaping from the shadows and slashing through his armor with her blade. The pirate staggered, choking, and collapsed without a sound. Jackson moved just as fast, grabbing the second pirate and slamming his head into the wall, knocking him out instantly. The Velari crew rushed in, taking out the rest before they could send a distress signal. In less than 30 seconds, it was over. The pirates never saw it coming. A risky escape. Syvern stepped over one of the fallen enemies. "We stopped them, but more will come." Jackson grinned. "Then let's use that against them." He pointed at the enemy dropship, still docked to the Velari hull. Syvern raised an eyebrow. "You want to steal it?" Jackson nodded. "We use it to board their warship, sabotage their systems, and make sure they can't chase us." Syvern hesitated. "That is reckless." Jackson smirked. "I prefer brilliant." She sighed. "Or suicidal." But they had no better option. Jackson cracked his knuckles. "Then let's go steal a warship." Jackson grinned as he stepped into the enemy dropship. The controls were alien, but he had flown enough strange ships before. He just needed a few minutes to figure it out. Syvern and the Velari crew hesitated at the entrance. "This is madness," one of them muttered. Syvern ignored the doubt. "Madness or not, it's our only way out." Jackson flipped a few switches, and the dropship's engines roared to life. The enemy warship, still drifting outside, hadn't noticed anything unusual yet. Jackson smirked. "All right, let's go knock on their front door." A dangerous infiltration. As the stolen dropship approached the enemy warship, Jackson kept his hand steady on the controls. "If they scan us, they'll know we're not their team," Syvern warned. Jackson grinned. "That's why we're going in fast." The moment they were close enough, Jackson cut all communications and forced the docking sequence. The warship's system, recognizing its own dropship, allowed them in. Syvern stared at Jackson. "You just hacked their entry system." Jackson shrugged. "Human instinct." The Velari crew exchanged impressed glances. As the docking clamps locked, Jackson stood up and grabbed his pistol. "Let's go ruin their day." Sabotaging the enemy. The team moved quickly through the enemy warship's corridors. Jackson led the way, taking down unsuspecting guards with quiet takedowns. Syvern hacked into the ship's main systems, rerouting power and shutting down enemy sensors. "Their engines are exposed," she whispered. "We can overload them." Jackson grinned. "Perfect. Let's make their ship a giant firework." He set explosive charges near the warship's reactor. They had 5 minutes before it all went up. Syvern's communicator beeped. The Velari ship is ready. We can leave. Jackson nodded. Then let's go before this place turns into space dust. The Great Escape. The team raced back to the dropship, alarms blaring as the warship's crew realized something was wrong. Pirates rushed toward them, but Jackson spun around, covering their retreat. He fired precise shots, taking down 3 enemies in seconds. Syvern, impressed, fought alongside him, using her speed to outmaneuver the rest. They barely made it to the dropship, jumping inside as the engines roared to life. Jackson punched the thrusters, blasting away from the warship just as the explosions detonated. The enemy vessel erupted in a chain reaction, tearing apart in a massive fireball. Jackson leaned back in his seat, grinning. And that's how you steal a warship. A new respect. As the Velari ship jumped to safety, Syvern turned to Jackson. You saved us. Her voice was softer than before. Jackson shrugged. You have done the same, right? Syvern hesitated. Then, for the first time, she smiled. Perhaps, but humans are truly unpredictable. Jackson chuckled. You have no idea. The Velari had once thought humans were reckless fools, but now they knew the truth. Humanity was something else entirely.